The Suzuki GT 750 is a two-stroke competitor to the near-perfect Honda CB 750 and Kawasaki's H1. While many Japanese manufacturers were cranking out the next great superbike, Suzuki released the GT 750 as a sport tourer, even though it had plenty of torque and a great standing quarter mile for the era. It claimed a top speed of 110 miles per hour. The prototype Suzuki GT 750 was shown at the 17th Tokyo Motor Show in October of 1970 and launched in Japan in September of '71. It was developed from the ever-popular T500 but added an extra cylinder and liquid cooling. Today it might not seem an important tidbit, but it really was a remarkable feature for a two-stroke in its day. Water cooling wasn't seen on two-stroke production motorcycles since the Scott motorcycle that ended prior to World War II. Marketed as Le Mans, it was nicknamed the Water Buffalo due to its cumbersome size, liquid cooling, and power. The GT 750 was heavy at 550 pounds, but it never felt heavy unless it was standing still. With a 739cc two-stroke, three-cylinder engine, and a bore and stroke of 70 by 64 mm, the GT 750 really had a lot to offer with a listed 70 horsepower at 6,500 RPM. More importantly, Suzuki was great at listening to its customers. When the 1972 model came out, it had strong but outdated drum brakes, while other manufacturers had a disc brake up front. So for the 1973 year, the GT 750 got a dual front disc system, something their competitors were not offering. It had a 5-speed gearbox and a 3-4 exhaust. The aluminum fins on the cylinders would be near useless for cooling purposes, so here you have a high-polished, smooth cylinder that still gives the bike a classic look. The Water Buffalo also came with generally bright paint schemes that were fitting for the 1970s, making it stand out from its competitors. A 1971 Cycle World article states that silence and smoothness are key words for the GT 750. Rubber mountings inside the crankcase attachment points to the frame allow the engine to shake just slightly around 2,000 RPM, but above that figure the motor is completely smooth up to the maximum revs. In an effort to make the GT 750 as quiet as possible, Suzuki incorporated an air filter intake system to minimize the intake roar characteristic of two-cycle engines. At the rear of the air cleaner box are two rubber tubes with slightly flared ends through which air is admitted to the filter. On this bike, however, is an aftermarket set of pods. The particularly appealing feature of the 750 was a design feature to reduce the output of exhaust smoke under certain conditions. When a two-stroke engine is operated at low speeds, unburned oil collects in the bottom of the crankcase, where it stays until the machine is accelerated hard, at which time the bike tends to billow smoke. This device is a one-way valve in the bottom of the crankcase, which is connected by a tube to an adjacent cylinder's transfer port. Instead of collecting, the unburnt oil is directed to and burned by the other cylinder and is ejected from the engine at a more constant rate, making highway riding much more pleasant for you and the other vehicles on the road. The GT 750 lasted 6 years, right through the 1977 model. It's a bike that truly was before its time, but already out of date by its second year. The reason? Suzuki's move to four-stroke in the form of the 1976 GS 750, development which began in 1973, all precipitated by Kawasaki's launch of the mighty Z1 and the ever more stringent smog laws that would eventually kill off all the two-stroke street bikes. Suzuki saw the writing on the wall and wisely chose to move in a different direction, a direction that ended up bringing us the legendary GS and GS XR.